You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We're back again. Friday again. It's like Fridays are coming faster than normal because, man, it's already August and we're getting almost halfway through to get to September. So life is going by fast. We have an amazing guest, Holly Porter. She is a survivor and a CEO. She has faced 2 near-death experiences, including a 70-day battle with COVID-19. We're going to get that story and inside scoop of what that experience was like. But that didn't stop her. She has done a lot of great work since then and before. So we're going to learn everything about her story. She's not just a survivor. She is a 15-time international bestseller author and an entrepreneur that is on a mission. She has launched 11 successful startups and is also a global speaker. So we're going to get right into her story. But before we do, welcome Holly to the show. Say how you're doing today.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being on. I want to jump into the story that really piqued my interest when I was reading up on you, and that is your life-threatening battle with COVID-19. Kind of paint the picture how you got in the hospital and what did that look like for you?
Yeah. Wow. Well, it didn't look very good. So prior to that, I was attending a conference, and this was fall of September in 2021. So we were in the midst of everything. I caught the Delta version while at the conference. Didn't know. I never thought I'd even get COVID. I was super healthy and didn't know I had it until I got home. So I think sometimes how many people I infected on that plane, it makes me really sad. So I got home, got tested. About 2 days later, we closed ourselves up into a fifth wheel. We were living there waiting behind my dad's house, waiting for our house to close. And so for a week, I got my husband sick about 2 days behind me. And for a week, we just hunkered down in there and wouldn't let anybody come in. People were just dropping us food. And about that week to a day, I woke my husband up about 4:30 in the morning and just said, I'm in trouble. I can't breathe. I felt like I had an elephant sitting on my chest. And so we didn't even dare call an ambulance because we were so worried about getting other people sick. Somehow he got up and he drove us to the ER, and he said that he dropped me off in the front. And by the time he parked, he came back into the front door and they already had me on my way to the ICU. So they knew I was in trouble. My oxygen was 63 when I walked in the door. They said I probably only had about another hour, as bad as it was. And they wouldn't let him in because he had COVID. So they sent him home, and I didn't see him for 3.5 weeks after that. And that began my first day of 70 that I spent in the hospital, not counting recovery and the week before. And there were some hard days and many days. Many of us, including myself, didn't think I would walk out of there. So I was intubated twice. I had a trachectomy. I had sepsis and a couple other life-threatening infections while I was in there. But I had some really cool experiences. I was in a coma about 30 days off and on a ventilator for 52 total, and a feeding tube for 63. So that's kind of how I ended up there.
That's quite an experience to go through. When you think about how much that disrupts your normal life, everyone has their responsibilities, goals, what they try and do. You had other people you had to care for prior to this. How were you able to get back on your feet? No pun intended, but how were you able to do that and kind of get back to normal living?
Oh, wow. It took a long time. So with COVID, when you're laying in a bed that long, you're getting PTSD, anxiety, depression comes later when you're in recovery. I literally lost all 5 senses at one point. They tie your hands to the bed when you're on a ventilator, so you won't pull it out. So taste and smell were gone from, thank you, COVID. And then I'm legally blind naturally, so if I didn't have any correction on, I couldn't see who anyone was unless they were 8 inches in front of my face. And then they were covered in yellow hat, yellow mask, yellow gowns. So that was scary. And then the ventilator took 90% of my hearing away for some reason. And everybody sounded like the Charlie Brown school teacher. Wah, wah, wah. So I had to learn to do everything again. First I had to learn to breathe because that's what I lost was my breath. And then, when you get off of the feeding tube, it's very delicate how they process you feed. You had to learn to eat, to swallow light foods, and then learn how to walk. I had to go to physical therapy while in the hospital. Hated that because I had no energy. It was a task. Everything I could do was like a win. So when I could pick up my actual phone, like I was that weak, I couldn't even hold my phone in my hand forever. And then it was the iPad. And then, I left on a walker, and then I went to a cane, and I had oxygen for months and months. I would say for a year and a half, I really struggled with being able to get back to my normal life. There were lots of setbacks. Long COVID came after that, which all the diagnoses started coming in. So now it's like, yeah, you're out of the hospital. You're doing recovery. I did pulmonary. I had a therapist for everything. I had 9 doctors at one time because I had so many different things going wrong. And I'm super holistic, by the way. So I'm not doctor friendly, but there were so many different things happening to my body because of it that I had a specialist just for everything. So I walked in the hospital on no drugs, walked out on 12, slowly worked my way off of all of them. And it's been a journey. It's not been easy. There's setbacks and we all have them. So I can't say I just, oh, yay, I got out of the hospital. I was back to normal. It wasn't that easy. And the setbacks are hard. They were the first couple of years I had like 6-week setbacks. This year I had a 10-week setback. I did work through it. I did travel through it, but I felt like crap every day. And the fatigue's real. And just those symptoms and things that come up. So when you ask that question, sorry, that was a long answer, but it's so loaded because it was a lot to get there. But I focused on wellness. I didn't focus on being sick. I knew that God saved me from my near-death experience in the hospital for a reason. And I knew I didn't want to waste a day. I don't want to waste my breath. I just want to focus on wellness. And so that's what I did.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest, Holly Porter. You hear a lot of people, or we heard a lot of people mention about like brain fog and fatigue. When you slowly started to gain your strength back, was there any point where you felt like this is going to be a long-term battle, like of recovery, or today, right now, are you feeling like your normal self as far as like strength goes?
No, I feel like everybody, after you recover, you get your new norm is what they call it. So there's 200 symptoms linked to long COVID, which if you think about that, it's pretty much everything. And a lot of people don't even realize they have long COVID. If you trace back some health issues that you're having back to when you had COVID, and if they started after that, more than likely it is some long COVID lingering on. My husband even has long COVID and he didn't spend any time in the hospital. There's people that were asymptomatic that never got sick that have long COVID. Like there's just no rhyme or reason. Everybody's so different from that. So I still do suffer, especially on the setbacks. The fatigue's a big one. The brain fog, yes. And it goes, I want to say like goes in waves is the only way to explain it. And some days what I notice for me is the directional stuff. So like I had a little bit of dyslexia from numbers and I noticed that's a little more pronounced. Everything you seem to have maybe that would ever happen to your body seems like it just caught it on fire. And so directional things. I mean, I am a real estate broker, so luckily we have navigation and most of the time it's right. I just rely on that because trying to figure out the directions of things is really challenging. That's where I noticed my brain fog. I mean, for instance, I lived on a busy street that was on a corner house and I had drove right past it going home a couple of times. My own house. I mean, just like you just don't compute. And so that's the only way I can explain it. So yes, I think a lot of people just don't realize those symptoms are following you. And it doesn't mean we need to give them a label. I don't want to be attached to diagnoses and things like that, but it's real. It's my life. And if you figure out what it is, it's a lot easier to figure out how to fix it.
You also, with all this that has gone on in your life, you also staying busy. You run businesses, you're coaching, you're speaking, doing all these great things. Tell us about what sparked the idea of the nonprofit Adventure Bucket Wish Foundation, and what is the backstory on that project?
Oh, wow. So that's a 501c3. Even the mission has changed. So while I was in my near-death experience in the hospital, God's my higher power, whatever that is for anyone else. But I had this told to me to start this nonprofit, and it was called Adventure Bucket Wish. But I didn't really get any more instructions than that. And I'm like, yeah. So when I started getting a little better, I knew I needed to take care of it. I knew I needed to incorporate it and then get the nonprofit. About 3 months to 4 months after I got out of the hospital, I was able to do that. And I was still on oxygen. I was still pretty sick, but I knew I was told to do this. If God's going to save my life and he's going to tell me to do something, I'm going to listen. So I incorporated it, and I was like, what's the mission? Well, long COVID was just starting to get out there where people were even talking about it. It was a very underserved community. Doctors didn't know how to help us. We're their statistics because they didn't have any. And it was really challenging. They would dismiss a lot of the symptoms, a lot of things that were going on. They just didn't know how, and it still is like that, actually. And so I thought, wow, what a better cause than for long COVID. So for the first couple years, we did our fundraisers, and it was all about helping the long COVID community. Well, one day the second year into our third year just really didn't feel right to me. And I'm very intuitive, a little more now than since I had near-death experience, but I just knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. So I took all the fundraisers off the calendar that year, and I just kept doing a podcast that I had that we interviewed doctors and holistic people and people with long COVID and caretakers of long COVID people. And that was our guest. And I was interviewing somebody that was sharing their long COVID story. And all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with reliving my story. Like, she's telling hers and I'm reliving mine, and I'm struggling breathing. And I'm like, what is going on? And all of a sudden I get this huge download that was just like someone's just yelling it right through me. And they said, this is your last podcast. This is not your mission anymore. I was like, whoa, what? I even had a hard time finishing the show. I mean, she never knew what was going on, but I was actually excited because it was like I wanted to just take that wide open book and go, whoop. And not because it wasn't a cause that was underserved and needed. It's just, for me, it was putting me in that sick space all the time. And I wanted to live in wellness space. I wanted to get better every day. Something better. My comment was better's better. And I would felt like I would always be pulled back into the negative part of it. So for me, emotionally and physically, it was better. Like, that was a great answer for me. And then I got really depressed about it because I called one of my board members and I said, she's really intuitive too. And I said, wow, why would God tell me to start this nonprofit and then take it away? She said, what do you mean take it away? I said, well, I was told this isn't my mission anymore. And she said, but were you told to start the nonprofit for the long COVID community? And I thought about it and I was like, no, actually, I wasn't. I came up with that myself because I was living it and I felt like it was needed. And she said, well, you're in your third year of the nonprofit, which is significant for a nonprofit. She said, why don't we just change the mission? Keep the name that God told you to do and just change the mission for it. So she said, what would light you up? What would make you excited about it? So I thought about it and I said, really something with women and purpose. So it's about women leading with purpose. And that's really what I gained out of my whole setback, is what I call it, when I was in the hospital, was purpose. Before that, I had a great family. I was happy, but I didn't really have anything that just lit me up to where it was like, this is the legacy I want to leave. This is what I want to be known for. This is it. And now it feels so much better to be able to feel like, wow, what if I could help women, especially minorities and veterans and single moms, because I have a bigger heart for those people. What if I could help them find their purpose and gather them into that? And so that's what we did. So sorry for the long answer, but that's the answer.
No, it's perfect. And what's very interesting is the timeline. And you said it only took 3 months for you to get things going originally. That's very impressive. But when you said your background, you said you was also in real estate prior to?
Yeah, so I've had 11 startups, not counting all the little things I set my kids up in and little stuff. But we usually had 3 or 4 at a time. And so I've had like real estate, I've been in that 20 years, but I had a salon and spa for 20 years. So I had a lot of licenses in the beauty industry, but I love the service industry. I got into real estate. I would actually put my real estate office when I got my broker's license into my salon. I had a big salon. So in the center of it was an office, and it was just fun. The energy was really fun. I loved doing that stuff. I knew with hair, I did hair and skin, and I knew my passion for it wouldn't end, but my body wouldn't be able to keep up with the passion for it. So I knew always I needed to look for something that was going to be more sustainable. And I also didn't just start in the 3 months, the nonprofit. I also was told I had an idea for a company called Retreat R&R. And I had pitched the day I found out I had COVID. I was sicker than a dog, and pitched to them. They had a billionaire backer. I wanted to partner with them, but I was told in my near death to not partner with them. That was the highest and best thing to do. And by then, this was just a concept. But I went ahead. I also was told it would take longer, which it has. But I went ahead and both companies, so the nonprofit and then the for-profit, I incorporated both of them within about 30 days of each other. So I was working on both of them at the same time. I still don't know how I had the energy to do any of it. I mean, I did have an attorney that was helping me with a lot of it. But I look back and I'm just like, how did I even do that with what I was going through? Because I was very sick.
The reason why I want to touch on that is because the fact that you just have this go get it mindset, and there's a lot of people who struggle with just one, but you have multiple, and that's very telling that you are not just committed to the work you do, but you're committed plus passionate plus visionary, and that's very impressive. That's very impressive, because those are qualities that are very necessary for any platform to have growth and to be able to sustain the success that comes with challenges. And you literally live through challenges as well. So my next question is, when you think about the comeback from your health, it took a hit, but what's very impressive is hearing you speak of how even more driven you were. I mean, most people, if they went through what you went through, they might have slowed down and say, you know what, maybe I'm just moving too much or too fast. Why? Not because you probably have the same type of energy, but how are you developing this energy to just keep moving in the business world? Because it's very intriguing.
Interesting. Well, it wasn't easy because I didn't have the energy I used to have. I still don't. I feel like, and I didn't answer that. When you asked me the other question, I probably, for a long time, I was at 70% better, I would say. And I thought that was my new norm. But to lose 30% of what you were, that's a lot. And I would say then I got to about 90%, and then I actually tipped to about 95%. So I would say I'm between 90 and 95%, depending on the day. I don't know if I'll ever be 100% again where I was, just because I have so many other things. But I think when you talk about setbacks, we all have setbacks. And we also all have the mental capacity to deal with what we can deal with, right? And when people say, oh, God will never give you more than you can deal with, that's hard to believe sometimes when you're in it, when you're in that moment. And I will share that so about the time I incorporated both those companies was my biggest setback. So for 2 years, almost, I had the worst life ever. Like, you would think, oh, you just came back from seeing, heaven. you think everything would be great. Everybody would be gravitating towards you. And, oh, my mom almost died. Let's be close. And with the exception of my husband and a couple siblings and a couple friends, I felt so alone in my life. And it was like I repelled everybody. And I cried every day for 2 years. In fact, I prayed many of those days that I would have just died. I literally was like, why would God save me to put me through this hell I'm going through? And it was just, everything was challenged. It was really, really hard. So I ended up coming out of the 2 years and I had a hypnosis session on the near death. So I had out of body experiences. I had a spiritual transformational experience and a near death experience in about a 3.5 week period of time while I was in the hospital, and when I was the worst. And I felt like I knew the story of the others, but I wanted this hypnosis session just on the near death so I could understand like what is going on. I mean, I'm saved. I lived. I got sent back. I didn't even get a choice to stay in heaven. I got sent back. And now I have all these things to do. And now I'm having all these setbacks. Now I'm having the worst 2 years of my life. What is going on? So that was an amazing adventure. And a lot of things were opened up to me in that. And I was told more will be revealed to you when the time is right. I was told to love people where they're at. And I think those were two messages at that time I needed really bad. I reviewed my life review again. And all I had to remember seeing was good. And trust me, I've done plenty of bad things. We all have done bad things. But this time I was like, I must have had the thought, where's all the bad? Because I wasn't seeing bad. I was seeing acts of kindness and service and joy and love. And I was told, this is what matters. The good I did was what mattered. That's what God cared about, was the good I did. And I feel like it was just it was like another awakening for me to say, keep going. He showed me a couple symbols in there. One had to do with a tree that ended up being the logo, not that actual tree, but a logo to my retreat R&R company I had created. And I told them it had to have a tree on it. I didn't remember that tree was in my near death till I had this hypnosis session. And then it appeared. And it was almost like God saying, you created that logo in that company you were told to do on your own without partnering with that billionaire. And you did it. And you didn't even remember part of it. You didn't even remember. And then there was another instance with the nonprofit where I saw these pink hearts being formed out of matter. And then they would form into a heart and they would float off into the light. And when I did my nonprofit gala fundraiser, I had these gift bags that I created for everybody that came. And I knew instinctively that every one of them needed a pink rose quartz heart inside that bag. Never questioned it. I just knew it did. And so I put it in there. And when I saw that, I was just like, wow. It was just like, I did that too. Well, I listened. And it's like, sometimes I think we have to get still when we talk about busy and you ask about busy. Sometimes busy is just the new stupid. And you just really need to take a step back. I believe I was put in a coma so that I would sit still. I don't think I was listening. I wasn't sitting still. I wasn't living in a purpose. I really wasn't. I was living in chaos and just on the edge all the time, and it's hard when you do more than one thing to really focus. I know for me, I will never do just one thing. I've had people say, my broker used to tell me before I was a broker, he said, you'd be my number one real estate agent if you would just focus on real estate. And I looked him right in the eyes and I said, you're right, I would be, but I wouldn't be happy and wake up every day happy. I just knew that about myself. And do you know later, like 10 years, maybe even 12 years later, he got dementia really bad. And I ran into him and he hardly remembered anyone at this point. And he came up to me and he said, are you still doing 100 different things? And to me, that was a huge compliment because he doesn't remember anyone. He has all this dementia, but he remembered that about me. And I thought, well, who do you want? Do you want someone to get things done that's already busy, or do you want someone who's not busy? Because busy people are the ones getting things done.
Great point. Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching this online, talking to our guest, Holly Porter, and getting closer to the end. you know what it takes personally to do what it is that you are aiming to do with your personal goals, professionally and community and family. There's a ton of people in our audience who are entrepreneurs, those who are striving to be entrepreneur one day and go full time. You know what it takes to get things done. Talking about busy and busy people getting things done. You personally lived it. What would you say to someone who feels like they are in their way when it comes to this business or this entrepreneurship opportunity? Having gone through what you've been through in your life, what words of wisdom will you share with them to help them maybe break through that vicious cycle?
Yeah. I'm in my way most of the time. I can relate to that. I would say the biggest lesson is to find your balance. What someone tells you to do or works for them may not work for you. Everybody has different spaces of their life. And if you're raising children, you're in a different space. If you're an empty nester, you're in a different space. If you're getting divorced, if you're having life crisis, things going on, what's someone can say, oh, try this, try that. But you got to know everybody has their own intuition. So I think listening to your gut and realizing, but finding that space of balance. So when you look at all this, life every day, your physical, your mental, every being that you have within you needs to be balanced. And so find one of those charts. They're out there all over that gives you all the different categories and see where you're off. There's a little test you can take. You can probably chat GPT something and it'll come up and help you figure out, like, am I not having enough self-care? Do I not have enough playtime? Do I work, 12, 14-hour days? I've had those days too. When you're building something big, yes, you have to sacrifice a little bit more. But if that balance is off, if you're not spending time with your children or your family or your spouse or your partner, and you're not finding that balance in what you're doing, that's when I think the scales get tipped. And for me, that's when I get health setbacks. I've realized that now. Oh, next time I start getting a health setback, I'm going to realize you're off track. You're not doing something right. And so you're getting sick. So why are you getting sick? And what do you need to look at? So I think it's a self-observation is what I would say.
And the last thing before we close is I want to zoom in on that part of being still, because I personally can relate to that being still sometimes is not like you taking a break just to take a break. It's more like you're taking a break to almost zoom out and reflect on, where am I actually going with this? And until you can stop and ask yourself that, you might become the person that is just never quite hitting the mark, because when you're so caught up in just being the busy bee, you miss when those opportunities that usually are like once in a lifetime. For me, it's creating memories, to making sure that this platform is healthy for my guests, and 3, making sure the listeners are being inspired and cutting the fluff. You have to, at times, be still, because that's my personal experience in alignment with what you've been talking about throughout the whole show. That's when you almost start to gain more clarity of who you are and what is possible. But it's totally a fog, if you will, if you just keep this busy mindset where you have no breaks and you don't have no mental sit down time and start reflecting on what's really going on.
Love that. So true. Now, one more thing. To shake it up, I bought a vibration plate. So it literally is one of those things you stand on that does this. And so sometimes the break is because I feel like it shakes up my nervous system, and it doesn't get me pumped up or anything, but it's just like moves things around a little bit. So when you're sitting at a desk and working at home or working at your office, you can buy one for about $60. They're so nice to have because it shakes everything inside. And I feel like after I'm done, okay, now I can get back to work, move things around.
Those watching, listening to us right now, what's the best website that they can go to stay updated with your work and your resources?
Yeah. The nonprofit is adventurebucketwish.org. And you can contact us there, or hollyporter.com. That's my personal one. Either way, you can get in touch. That'd be great. And I'm on all social media platforms, some more than others.
Like I always want to say to our guest, Holly, thank you for your time.